Oh, I am streaming live on Kardec Radio Facebook page, and I want to welcome everyone here to the page. We are on, this is Brian Foster. We are on every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. And we're also live. We also have our programs pre-recorded and live on Kardec Radio. It's an app you can put on your Android or your Apple phone. Go to the Play Store or the Apple Store and type in Kardec Radio, and I'll show you a picture. This is why we are here, because of Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism. There we go. So you can go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, and you can click on his picture, and it will take you to the EDICI bookstore where you can buy books about Spiritism from Allan Kardec. Oh, hello, Betsy. How are you? I can finally see your names. Last week, they didn't have the names on there, so thank you for saying hi. So you can go to the EDICI bookstore. You can find his books. They're actually less expensive than if you buy them on Amazon. Of course, you can also get them on PDF. Allan Kardec in the 1850s codified Spiritism by talking to putting questions to many mediums and seeing if they had the same answer. He did not tell each medium that he was giving the same question to other mediums. He made sure that different spirits or the different mediums were receiving the same type of answers. Let me stop this. So this is all about Spiritism. And there's Matthew. Hello, Matthew. So I recommend for people, if you want to learn more about Spiritism, go to my blog, nwspiritism.com. I have a BitChute channel, which I recommend everyone to subscribe to, and a YouTube channel. And also, we also have a way for people can get onto a site and then actually make an appointment with myself or Sergio right now. Let me bring this up. Let me bring this one down first. And you can go to studyspiritism.org. Now, again, that's spiritismstudy.org. Spiritismstudy.org. I said it backwards the first time. And you can make an appointment. You scroll down a little bit. You can get on a calendar and make an appointment to talk with one of us. We don't, we're there just to answer questions, talk freely, decide how you'd like to, what your concerns, what your questions are about Spiritism. We can recommend kind of the books to read. We can go through them together, etc. So it's very exciting. The more you learn about Spiritism, the more you understand your place in this world. You understand why you're here. You understand why things happen to you, and it becomes a lot less stressful. So I would recommend that to anyone. So now, as part of that, what are we learning about today? Well, it's pretty exciting. And we are learning, we're going through my book, which is The Case for Reincarnation. And when I say my book, really what I've done is I've taken information from different spiritist sources, and I am accumulating that. And then, because a lot of this information is in bits and pieces in many different places. The books from Allan Kardec, the books from Francisco C. Xavier, also known as Chico Xavier. You can find a lot of his books on Amazon, and of course on the EDICI bookstore, which are marvelous books, especially that whole series by Andre Luiz. It starts with No Solar, Our Home in Portuguese, but I would recommend that. It's also a movie called No Solar, or Celestial City, maybe Astral City, but you can rent that like for $3.99. It's well worth the price. So what are we talking about today about reincarnation? So we're talking about reincarnation in the contents of families. And I know a lot of people are interested in this. So before I start that, I created this slide. I want to go through this a bit. I'm going to go through it again on next week, but I want people to understand kind of the whole process of reincarnation, because it actually has this is something that we should all understand as we go through life. So here's the process. In reincarnation is like a road that you lay as you go, but the road ahead, let's say a life or two lives, right, is really being paved right in front of you by what you've done in a previous life, or maybe earlier in this present life, but mostly it's in previous lives. So the whole process of reincarnation is in your previous life. Each life is recorded, every detail. Right? We can have a whole talk about that. There's nothing private about us at all. Our thoughts, everything is recorded. We all have a unique identification number, and it's all in the cloud. In fact, in the books by the Reverend G. Baowen, a spirit was talking to Reverend G. Baowen. It's like, how do spirits communicate? And they're saying, well, it can be through thought. It can be sending mental pictures to people. They actually use, when they talk spirit to spirit, they actually use a combination of both. And he goes, also, there's a third way, but you won't understand it. And he told them this in the early 1900s. He says, everything's recorded. We know everything. We know everything about you. And then certain higher spirits can access this and decide to talk to you and directly to you. And they know exactly where you are, what you're going to do, and what you're going to be doing. I don't know how many years. It probably depends on the height of the spirit of how they can access the data to see exactly where you're going to be at some particular time in the future. So this is well known in spirit world. And of course, now we all know the concept of the cloud. So I would think, if you want to think about karma, think about not just things you have. Let's say you put things on Facebook, you put things on your phone. Everything's in the cloud, right? Everyone knows that. Everyone tells their child, whatever, don't put anything stupid anywhere because they'll find it. Well, that's really advice for your whole life, right? Is they'll find it. It is all there. And therefore, everything's recorded. Your current life, the process too, results from your previous life determines the plan, trials, and episodes of your current life. And then your future life, your present life is recorded and will be used to determine your next or even episodes within your current life. So now what does that have to do with families? Well, quite a lot, actually. It has quite a lot to do with families because your family. Now, let me just go through it first. Families tend to reincarnate together. And then let's talk about this. So people wonder whether we have many families, mothers, fathers, and so on as we travel through multiple lives. How do we manage having the menagerie of relatives while in the spirit world? And the answer is we don't, right? Most of us love our families, and our fondest wish is to be reunited with them in the spirit world. We may ponder what life would be like in a heavenly place with our loved ones. Then we think about reincarnation, and we realize, well, we may have had lots of families, including many different mothers and fathers, and who knows how many brothers and sisters. So is there a legion of relatives waiting for us so that we may need like a terabyte-sized address book to keep them straight? Well, Allan Kardec's book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, gives us the answer. And in it, we find this clarification. This is what they say. Family ties are not destroyed by reincarnation, as certain persons believe. On the contrary, they are strengthened and become tighter. Now, how can that be? Well, how can we travel through countless centuries and remain involved in our close family circle? Well, the answer, like the answer to so many other questions, lies in the law of affinity, whereby souls who are at the same level share in a mutual affection and have similar tastes, and they naturally gather together. So what is a law of affinity? Let me say this. It's like, and essentially it's like associated with like, affinity. The law of affinity is actually one of the great filters, or more aptly, sorters of the universe, where souls more interested in doing harm gather in darkened areas, and souls who have respect and admiration for one another's achievements also group together in celestial cities. Allan Kardec explains how affiliated souls tend to stay with each other. This is a quote from the Gospel According to Spiritism. These spirits, happy at being together, seek out one another. Incarnation separates them only momentarily, because after their re-entry into the errant state, they meet again like friends who have returned from a journey. Frequently, they even follow one another into incarnation, wherein they are reunited in the same family or the same circle, working together for their mutual advancements. That's the end of the quote. So, what's he saying? The tight cluster of souls will watch out for each other. While some are incarnates on earth. Others will look on from high and help guide the spirits going through their trials. As they become pure, their friendship becomes more concrete. As their bodies divest of matter, petty jealousies and selfishness don't disrupt their relationships. Now, of course, there are different types of family relationships, including those in which one is bonded together with another due to a purely physical connection, or a person we marry not because of true spiritual affection, but of a sensual or monetary attraction. These are people who have been selected for us in order to experience the trials that, need I remind you, we have selected ourselves. We may not like them very much, but I can guarantee we'll learn some hard lessons from them, and for that, we should be grateful. As Allan Kardec states, there are no lasting affections except spiritual ones. Physical affections die out with the cause that gave rise to them, but that cause no longer exists in the world of spirits, whereas the soul exists forever. Okay, what's he saying? Therefore, when we need a special kinship to select members of our family, most probably because we are united in the spirit world beforehand, we should feel safe since they will always have our best interests at heart. On the other hand, those relations toward whom we feel mistrustful are usually there for one or two reasons. First, they may be of an inferior level and require the love and guidance of an advanced family members to assist them in improving their position. Who hasn't seen families where all the children seem well brought up by good parents except one, the black sheep? Well, now you have a likely explanation. The parents may have volunteered to help a poor soul improve his or herself, only to find that in spite of their efforts, that the spirit insisted on continuing with his or old bad habits or tendencies. A second reason for those difficult relatives is that they may be located with us as a trial. They may be poor souls that we have wronged in the past, or they have wronged us, who are now introduced to us as a means of reconciliation to repair the damage we caused, or even they caused. The spirit world does not like loose ends. This is why, in fact, I just put this up on my actually, I recorded. I haven't put it up on YouTube channel. Why? It's amazing. In the Bible, when Jesus says, forgive 7 times 70 or 77 times, right? When Peter asked him, how many times did I forgive my brother? 7 times? No. 77 times. So why is that? Why did he say that? Because it's amazing when you learn about Spiritism and you read these quotes by Jesus, all of a sudden like, oh my heavens. It means a lot more than just what it says in words, right? Because most people read the Bible and says, forgive 7 times, 70 or 77 times. I always get that mixed up. But it's like, well, we should forgive each other and we should, be loving and caring and all that. Yes, it's absolutely true. But there's a whole different level when he says forgive. Jesus said forgive, and it was written down in Matthew, because the spirit world resolves, and there's 2 reasons. Spirit world wants to resolve the conflicts, which they will, because you will be put in families where you've had conflict, or members will be put in your family that had conflicts. And another major reason, those people who you have really wronged, or you feel or have really wronged you, more importantly, and that you want revenge, when someone feels the need for revenge so great, right? They will go in the spirit world and they'll look them out. If they're still on earth, they will try and affect them from the spirit world to the physical life. And if they're also in the spirit life, they'll also try and attack them and affect them. And that's the reason for a lot of obsessions. Now, I'm not saying it's everyone. And if you have any mental problems, go to your doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. Always see them first. But in Spiritist hospitals, they have Spiritist mental hospitals in Brazil. And they will try and help people twofold. The way that they do in most other parts of the world, right, with psychoanalysts, etc. But they'll also try and dive deep and see if are there spirits involved. Are they trying to attack them? There's a story I read in a book, and this person was working with Chico Xavier, and these people would come through the line and talk to Chico independently. And this one family, this husband and wife, said, Chico, our daughter, was doing well, okay, but now she's, in these complete episodes when she's lost, she's schizophrenic, or we don't understand what's going on. And Chico said, go help someone. Go volunteer and help someone. That was his prescription. So what did the family do? They went and helped someone. They came back about a year later, I believe. I could be wrong on the time. And they said, Chico, our daughter's much better. And Chico said, what did you do? And he goes, well, we decided to go volunteer at prisons and talk to people about Spiritism at prisons. And then Chico said, yes, you did. I know that. And what happened was that as you helped these prisoners, the mothers of the prisoners who were in the spirit world knew what a wonderful things you had done. Then the mothers found out that you had a daughter that was being, ill-used by spirits who wanted revenge on her. They went and told those spirits, said, look, her parents are really great. They were helping our sons. Please stop bothering this woman. And they did. And now she's much better. I don't know. So that is a lesson for all of us. We have to worry about that. So again, always go to your doctor. I don't want to say that that's always the cause, but this shows you that people are born with different things. And this is why, Jesus said, forgive, because these things carry on. There's been people have been plotting for revenge spirits for life after life after life. It's not a good thing. So anyways, I'm saying, you're born with these people and you can understand them. So now I said there was two reasons, right? First, they needed to be helped. And then the second reason was those that were difficult relatives, that they may be located with us for a trial, right? And that's in the reconciliation. So Allan Kardec backs up this thought with his statement: God, whose laws are supremely wise, does nothing useless. Through reincarnation on the same globe, God has willed that the same spirits come in contact with one another for the chance to repair their mutual offenses because of previous relationships. God wishes furthermore to establish family ties on a spiritual basis and to support the principles of solidarity, fraternity, and equality as a natural law. So, what am I saying? I'm saying don't have worries about your loved ones. While there may be more than you originally thought, you have the capacity to love many. You also love with the purity of spirit, unencumbered by physical tethers. For your love is not based on any material calculation, but on shared experiences and beliefs, a pure affection. Look forward to reuniting with your friends in the spirit world. Together, you can talk about what you learned and how you failed, how you succeeded, and you can plan out your next physical adventure with the knowledge that you will have support both from heaven and from on the ground. So now let's go we've talked about family. Now let's talk about difficult people in your life. This is always one. And I've gone through where I've had difficult people in my life. And, before I learned Spiritism, I said, oh God, I just wish that person would go away or I could leave. You always want to either have that person, somehow move away, or God forbid, have an accident and get them out of your life for a month or two, or you go away, right? But we have to realize they're usually there for a purpose. And when they're a family member, it's there for probably a greater purpose. So ask yourself, do you experience problems with some of your family members and have no idea why? And perhaps you have tried everything and they just don't like you. Or worse, they are nice to you, and for some reason, you can't help but reject them. There are explanations besides them in your eyes being a jerk, or in their eyes, you being a jerk. There's deeper explanations than that. As part of your learning experiences on Earth, you have been reborn with past adversaries, as I said before. Reconciliation is the word of the day. For example, may have been rivals who assaulted you, or the explanation may be one of a myriad of other reasons for that indistinct feeling of revulsion. And when we have that indistinct feeling of revulsion, remember what I've said before. What are we given to us in reincarnation? We're not given memory of our past existence. Oh, Gabriel, my wife, children, and I just made a pray in the gospel at home, and it was all about forgive while you have the chance. Yeah, yes, there you go. So hopefully I backed up what you said. So I said, so what are you brought? What is given to you as you're incarnate? Your conscience, which is that set of divine laws, right, that you built up. And, we know there's not black and white. There's gray of everything. We learn and relearn as we go of how to pick what's right and what's wrong. It's very difficult sometimes. Also, your instinct. And your instinct will kick in when there's someone you recognize from a past life. You won't feel that. Some people can, but I never have. But then there's some people you just like right away. And there's no logical reason for that. People say, well, there's hormones affect you and all that. That could be part of it. But I think a lot of it is that instinct with past lives. So main thing is, yes, forgive. So what did Gabriel say? I have to get over here so I can read the whole thing. Forgive now from the Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. It's probably in one of his books. Yes, Chico's got all sorts of books with great 1 or 2 page kind of information like Jesus at Home. And I forgot now the other names just went on my mind, but they're wonderful books. And you can find them all on the EDICI bookstore, which you can go when you click on the picture of Allan Kardec on my website. So what was I saying? Oh, yes. So we're all here for a reason, as we all know here. And according to Spiritism, codified by Allan Kardec in his book, The Spirit's Book, we come to inhabit our physical bodies to improve ourselves as part of our quest to become better souls, with the goal of someday becoming pure spirits and casting off our need for reincarnation. I've told you this before. But this is why these things come at us. This is why we're given trials and tribulation. So, and most amazingly, we're here with people we have known before in a previous life. The Spirit Books tells us in question 204, as we have many existences, do our relationships extend beyond our present existence? And the answer is, it can't be otherwise. The succession of their corporeal existences establish among spirits a variety of relationships which date back from their former existences, and those relations are often the cause of sympathies or antipathies which you sometimes feel towards a person whom you seem to meet for the first time. So exactly what I said. Your instinct follows through. It's like, oh, I really like Aunt Betty, or well, I hate Uncle Al, right? It's just, you feel that. So hence, like the episodes of a family drama on TV, the plot lines of our own stories continue from one life to the next. As an example, in a lecture given by Geraldo Lemos Neto, it's a great lecture. I actually have it. You can look for that. It's on my blog, and I have a link to it. I should find that sometimes. But he tells us about the whole cast of characters, that he traces them through multiple lives. And this was in the book 50 Years Later, which was inspired by the Spirit Manual, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier, which describes our noble Roman in his life at the time, 50 years after Christ came to earth, and the women who vied for his affections. Now, one woman in particular who loved him deeply attempted to take him from his wife. And that's our main subject. So think about this woman who said, no, he's married to her, but I want him. Geraldo tells us that in a successive life, this woman was reborn as his sister. See, reconciliation, right? While she was a very good and loving person in this life when she was his sister, she wasn't back in 50 years later in the book, right after Christ. These are all about real people. People actually and when he's saying he's a very good, loving person, she was actually reborn, I think, in the 30s or 40s, maybe earlier than that, in Brazil. And in fact, that was in the family that actually gave Chico his job on that government fazenda. So she was a very good person in that life. But she found every woman her brother attempted to have a relationship was lacking. And when he did marry, she never tired of pointing out that his wife was continually inadequate. Isn't that amazing? So the spirit world deliberately placed her in a sibling relationship with a man she had desired throughout hundreds of years, so she could learn the value of caring for others above herself, as well as self-discipline and restraint in her emotions. And I'd also like to point out is during the time when she back in Roman times, when she tried to steal the husband from the wife, her maid also was part of the plot and actually did some very terrible things. Well, her maid also came back as a sister. See? These things, I mean, the tapestry that the spirit world, under the leadership of Jesus around, the earth weaves for us is so intricate. We can't see the threads, right? Imagine how complex it is planning our life and how many people we intersect. Their computing power is way beyond my calculation. So let's talk about another example. So reincarnation can also play a part in our current life. In the book And Life Goes On by the spirit Andre Luis, this is one of the books in the series of books by Andre Luis, again psychographed by Seiko Xavier. A young man, Caio Serpa, murdered a rival, Tulia, to gain his first wife. So he wanted this woman, Tulia, and he wanted the woman, and he killed, the husband of the woman. So while Caio's first wife, Evelina, was dying, Caio took up a relationship with Vera, and Caio married Vera soon after Evelina's death. So the spirit world worked to bring about the reunion and his victim, Tullio. So Tullio was the one who was married to Evelina. He killed him, and then when Evelina died, he married someone else. It's all very part. So as part of the plan for Tullio's next life, because he was in the spirit world, he was hating this guy, right? They wanted him to be reborn as the son of the person who murdered him, like Caio's son, so the two could be reconciled. But they started the process very subtly. So Tullio was taken to Vera one night, right, which is his new wife. So so he'd get to know about the woman who would receive him in his arms as a mother. And as he watched her sewing in the home, Tullio immediately felt drawn to her. He noticed her gentle face, the serene eyes, and he wanted to be part of that family. So they brought him in spirit world. And in fact, this is a typical thing on when women become pregnant. And in their dreams. And I know some pregnant women kind of remember these type of dreams. I don't know if all of them do, but it's very interesting, is it not? So they didn't say who the father was, so you wouldn't have this aversion, right? The spirit world works to free everyone from petty hatreds and crimes of passion. So realizing this, the following Bible verse comes to mind and is now much clearer in meaning. This is the Bible verse of Luke chapter 6, verse 27 through 36. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Now, if you read that literally, it's like, well, anybody can come and take advantage of me. Okay, yeah, you want my shirt, you want my wallet, I have to give it to you. Well, you have to read it in context of multiple lives and keeping an even keel and being polite and trying to be nice and forgiving people who aren't so nice. It doesn't mean you have to be a sap and completely passive, right? You can try and control the situation as you can. But what they're trying to get into you saying is, don't create conflicts with spirits who could make your life miserable in the future, right? You don't have to steal money from these people for you to be rich. Being rich isn't that important. So this is why Spiritism so helps me, at least, interpret the Bible, because now it makes much more sense. So we understand that there's a long-term plan. In our quest for moral perfection, we must shed our thirst for revenge, let go of our targeted hatred, and be calm in the knowledge that when a person does wrong, the all-powerful natural laws of God will enable that person to recover the moral debts and eventually better themselves. It's not up to us to be the judge. We don't need to be that. It is up to us to be reconciled with and compassionate towards those who didn't know any better when they committed their wrongs. So let's get back to the story from Life Goes On. It's another great book. The Spirit helped them implant the idea of the motherhood in the Vera, who reacts positive to this suggestion. And then she thought, so this shows you there's so many different levels here. How spirits influence or thing. They give you inspiration. They don't put in your thought like, oh, I want a child. I have to have a child, right? They'll just say, yeah, think about that. So then she thought, and they give her a suggestion. Would you like to have a child? And he goes, oh, I'd love to have a son, she thought. And how I long to be a mother. And she was awaiting this blessing in her mind from the Almighty, and she's aware that her husband desired her for the future. And in her daydream, she intentionally prayed to God for a boy. So they take care of both sides of the equation, the mother and the baby, right? So the plan is done, right? So the beginning of a new life would heal the whole wounds, and the circle of karma will start to turn. The expected outcome of the placement of the victim in the perpetrator's house was explained as follows, is what the book says. Based on the truth of what they had promised, Julia would reincarnate with Kyle as his father, totally magnetized by his mother's devotion, so he could be around his former adversary once again and transform resentment into love by the means of the therapy of forgiveness. So now, son and father, right? The father actually murdered the son in a previous life. So will that relationship be easy? Sometimes it is, but because, right, you're as a child, you're molded, but could be not, because deep down in the instincts, Julia will feel a tinge of resentment towards his father. This will have to be solved by both of them, namely by Kyle the father, because he is the father and the guide for a son. It's his responsibility. He's the one that did wrong. You ever know his families were, another example of, there's families where like the daughter just loves the father and just like forget the mother, or the son loves the mother and says, and it's like, I don't even want to know the father, right? Or whatever. There's a combination of that. A lot of times that's because that son or daughter was in complete passion, and it may have been unreconciled passion, but then the spirit would put them in as the son or daughter for them to learn to love that person in a more brotherly or child mother method. So you see these things and you understand spiritism and you say, oh, well, that may not be, but it's just kind of fun to guess. So now let's talk about money for a second. A crime for money. Some relationships are carried over from previous existences, can be very complicated. However, the spirit world always delivers justice. In the book, In the Greater World, again, by the spirit Andre Louis, psychographed by Chico C. Xavier, there's a man named Fabricio who betrayed his father's last wishes and stole the entire inheritance from the brothers, left them penniless. He took all the money. And on his deathbed, they give you the following scene. And so Fabricio calls for his grandson, little Fabricio, right? He goes, my little Fabricio, I want you to pray for me when I die. And the boy didn't hesitate. He knelt down and said the Lord's Prayer. And when the prayer ended, the sick man asked with moist eyes, dear child, don't forget to pray for me when I die. The boy, now standing, hugged his grandfather and replied, you're not going to die. And appearing relieved, the old man responded and gazed at his grandson, and he says, well, little Fabricio, do you believe that God forgives sinners like me? And he says, yes, I believe that God forgives all of us. Even a man who betrayed his father's trust and steals from his brothers. And then little Fabricio hesitated. He wasn't quite old enough to understand the implication, but he said, I think God always forgives. And the old man said, that's what I wanted to know. So So here's a man, he's a criminal, right? Who lived out a long life in luxury, surrounded by a loving family, who wouldn't think he had escaped all of his punishment, and his brothers and father were few of many in a long line of unavenged victims. So he would not escape expiation, and the wrong parties would get their repayments. For little Fabricio is actually the reincarnated spirit of his grandfather's father, as the book explains. So little Fabricio was the father of who the grandfather betrayed. So the original father who let the grandfather all the inheritance, he's returned to the family. He gets all the money. He's his only grandson. He will assume control of the whole material inheritance of the family. He goes, and they said in the book, the law never sleeps. So not only would the money revert to its rightful owner, but the older Fabricio would have to go through his own trials even after death. This was his trials. With the residues of his criminal actions in mind, right after abandoning his physiological domicile, our sick friend will experience the results of his failure for a long time. This will continue up to the point where suffering will finally remove the malignant elements that poison his soul. As demonstrated, no one goes unpunished, unfortunately, or uneducated. I shouldn't use the word punished. Perhaps at some future date, the elder Fabricio may be reincarnated back into his family, or they may leave him behind, advancing spiritually, while Fabricio remains mired in his materialistic desire. One is not sure. So the other thing is, when you have problems with people, you need to try and come to an understanding. The combinations and permutations of concurrent and related lives of intersecting people over eons are endless. Exactly what kind of preceding relationships we shared with the current member of our extended families is unknown to us, but this much is certain. We have built up a large reservoir of loved ones. This includes people that we naturally gravitate towards, right? The law of affinity coming through here again, by which those of the same level of goodness and understanding are drawn together. For the vast majority of us, these allies are more numerous than our adversaries. Therefore, seek out your estranged relations and attempt to come to an agreement or understanding with them, and let there be eternal peace between you. Because it is for this reason the person was chosen to be in your circle of family, maybe extended family. Failing to do so may require you to endure the same antipathy again in your next life. If you don't pass the test, it will be given, right? God gives us free will. We can be as obstinate or ignorant as we want in life after life. And it'll just keep giving us the same lesson until we pass it. So remember, you have friends here on earth living beside you as they've done lifetimes before. You also have friends you have moved on but are still watching over you and are interested in your advancements. And the Spirit book says in question 488, have the relatives and friends who have gone before us in the other life more sympathy for us than spirits who are strangers to us? And the answer was undoubtedly they have. And they often protect you as spirits according to their power. Then they ask a follow-up question. Are they sensible of the affection we preserve for them? Very sensible, but they forget those who forget them. So let the help you're given percolate through your soul to give you strength during times of frustration with others. Know that if you ask for the power to forgive, the spirit world will give it to you. That is so important. So, and that's just talking. Let me just finish this off, and let me go through talking about a past life. This might be interesting to people. So, there was in the book, Leon Denis mentioned in his book Life and Destiny, which again you can find on PDF. And Leon Denis wrote his books after Kardec. You know, he was kind of the person after Kardec helped prolong Spiritism. And I saw his name in the book. And as I read Spirit books, when I encounter new names, I always look them up. Okay, because I always try to find, okay, is there something wrong with this, or how does this fit in there? As an example, one time I read the passage in one of Under Louis' books, and I saw the name of Emanuel Swedenborg. And then it's a whole new world about, oh, I never heard of him. And I actually read, his books, and it's very interesting. Oh, and then Gabriel says, I always wondered about reincarnation and family. I had an adopted daughter before meeting my wife, and she'd had 2 children, and then we had a little boy. Was it chosen before we were born? I mean, in the spirit realm, who knows? Anyway, I think everything happens for our evolution. So, yes, most probably it was born, and a lot of times your adopted daughter really may have been a very close family member of yours, and they just had a different way to bring that child to your family. It may have been your daughter in a previous life, and now it's your adopted daughter in this life. This is why I think when people adopt, or the children, you can love them just as much as your own child, because they probably at one time may have been your child. It's just they were introduced to your family for you to raise in a different manner for a reason you probably can't understand. Maybe been a reason to teach her mother a lesson, or who knows. But these things, when they're in your life, they're meant to be in your life. And you should love them like you love everyone, but they are completely precious to you. So that was a great question. So always ask me questions as I can go off topic. But yes, my stepson, who I never call him that, he's my son. I always think, he and I just get along so well together. He's just the greatest kid on earth. And I was just think, well, yeah, I'm sure he was mine. I just got him through a different method. Right. So that's how I think it, who knows? So, yeah. So Emanuel Swedenborg, very interesting. But anyway, so I read about Joseph Mary, who's mentioned in the book by Leon Denis, Life and Destiny. And I looked him up, and he was an author of stories, satires, and plays. He lived in France. He was born in 1797, and he died in 1866. He was an acquaintance of Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo and many other famous books. And Leon Denis was providing some examples of past lives, and he talked about the past life of Joseph Mary. And since Joseph Mary had singular theories, which to him were convictions, this is what written by Leon Denis. He firmly believed he had lived several times and recalled small incidents of anterior existences. He said Virgil and Horace had been friends of his, and he had known Augustus and Germanicus, and had fought in Gaul and Germany. When they crossed the Rhine, he recognized places in the mountain where his name was Minius, and he gives an incident to substantiate his idea. One day, Mary was visiting the library of the Vatican in Rome. He was met by 2 young men in long brown robes who spoke him in pure Latin. Mary was a Latin scholar, but he had never attempted to converse in the language of Juvenal. But as he listened to these young men and admired their magnificent idiom, a veil seemed to fall from his eyes, and it seemed to him it was thus he had conversed of old with his friends. Irreproachable phrases fell from his lips. Immediately he found elegant and correct expressions. He spoke in Latin as he spoke in French. This he could not have done without apprenticeship. He must have journeyed through a century of splendor to acquire such language, which could not have been attained within that hour. So, you never know where instinct will take us, right? I've also read where how there's the spirit, the paraspirit, and the physical body. So I think I have an explanation of how he could all of a sudden channel perfect Latin. I think this was in a book by Devaldo Franco, The Planet in Transition. And one of the spirits was telling another spirit that when you're in human form, right? So the paraspirit connects the spirit to your physical body, which your thoughts, and it's your conduit, right? Through it. Of course, you don't get everything, right? Because your brain is primitive compared to your spirit brain. But every language you learn on Earth is enclosed in the paraspirit, and therefore you can translate if you've known that language from even, let's say you were French before, or you were Chinese, one of the dialects, or some remote dialect in some mountain in Tibet, if you're a spirit, someone taught you in that dialect, you would know it because it's in your perispirit, and it would do this automatic translation. I believe that's probably what happened to Mary, is that his perispirit was translating this for him. Somehow he tagged in a better method than I ever had, because my language skills are next to non-existent. He honed in on this, and he was able to get his thoughts somehow translated through the perispirit, and it came out perfect. I don't know this for sure. This is just my idea, so don't take my word for it, but that's my thesis. So it's your conscious, your instinct, and sometimes some people can tie into more. So imagine the hidden potentialities that lies within us, and the possibilities we could step into if we could harness that wisdom of many, many years ago. And we can. The more we can pay attention to our conscience, and then also and learn to filter out, right? Because you're going to have spirits inspire you for the good and the bad. Filter out those bad ideas, and have your conscience, and your filter is the conscience, right? And if it gets through the filter system and you feel good about it, you feel relaxed and not stressed about your decision, you're okay. So, and also this whole idea with the perispirits also, I believe, is occasionally why we hear about people who've had an accident or a medical procedure, and suddenly they exhibit a new talent. I think somehow there's some other connection that came up through their perispirit, and you've heard of people all of a sudden they can speak a different language, or revealing an in-depth knowledge about a subject they had never studied before, at least in that lifetime. The fact that we are reincarnated and connected to the spirit world by our perispirits, I believe, explains many of the anomalies we see in the world. So I want to thank everyone for being with me tonight. Thank you for the questions. Again, we are here every Sunday. Come and join us. Tell your friends. Please share this video. Please tell your friends to subscribe to our YouTube or BitChute channel. Go to nwspiritism.com. Also on Wednesdays nights on Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us, I have another live stream on that Facebook site. I don't want to crowd out Kardec Radio and all the great people on Kardec Radio. They give all sorts of wonderful Facebook Live, and also on Kardec Radio itself, you can hear them. So I wanted to tell everyone, please go to there, tell your friends, subscribe, share the videos, spread the news of Spiritism. I think it's going to help people. And please ask me any question you want, and go to spiritismstudy.org if you'd like to talk to me personally or Sergio, and we would be happy to talk to anyone through WhatsApp or whatever. And Gabriel, thank you. Thank you, million to you. And Orez Jr., yes, thank you too. And I will see everybody next week. And on Wednesday, if you want, come to the Spiritism and Spirit World Around Us. And I'm going to talk about, from the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, I'm going to talk about last Wednesday I talked about what happy spirits did as they died. I'm going to talk about not so happy spirits. Okay. Good night, everyone, and God bless.